the brain that will change the world. And that's our job. Tell me why, tell me why, tell me why. Why can't we live together? Tell me why, tell me why. Why can't we live together? Everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together?
Hello, all you melanated viewers. Sun-kissed by God's lips. This is Coy with your black tea sip. I'm sipping power to pour you the truth. Go grab your cup. Let's give it up.
All right. Welcome to the sip. This is your girl Coy with your black tea sip, you sun-kissed gods and goddesses. We got a lot to talk about today. Partly, if you are in the state of Texas, you are feeling embarrassed and wanting Governor Hot Wheels to just roll away. And we're going to talk about that. But I want to talk about something that I talked about last week. I want to talk about the Olympics. It seems that Team USA was able to pull it off with all of the tomfoolery that's going on in this country. We seem to have been the winningest team at the Olympics. I mean, whoop, whoop, go to Team USA. Although I have to admit, I did at times find myself rooting for another country completely accidentally and unbeknownst. Because it would be a brother or a sister, like Cuba. They were dark skinned and playing great volleyball, and I would be like, go. And then I'd be like, wait a minute, that's the wrong country. I'm cheering for the wrong team. I would be like, well, but you tend to kind of, we've been in such a situation, parenthetically George Floyd and before, that we tend to just root for folks that look like us. Because, sometimes that's all we got is people that look like us to root for us. I did find myself doing that, but I want to bring a little light-heartedness to to all of the things that are going on. The Olympics, we had COVID, they were living in a bubble and they were still getting sick, and we were talking about why are they having it at all, and Tokyo was like, nope, we should have had it last year, we're going to have it, we spend money. Because it's always about the money, it's all about the Benjamins. But there is a Jamaican runner named Hansel Parchman. He gets on the wrong bus to go to his meet. Now, wait a minute. The first thing I want to talk about is, why is runner Hansel getting on a bus to go to a meet? You mean to tell me they don't have shuttle service for the Olympians? That's what y'all telling me? I was flabbergasted, floored to know that was a reality. That he could literally be an Olympian contender and not have a ride. So he takes the wrong bus and he's completely lost. And he gets on social media and says he needs help. Runs into a young woman and she gives him cab fare. He runs the hurdles. Hansel wins the gold. And he goes back to give her her money back and to show her his gold medal. Now, if that is silver lining in a dark day, I don't know what is. That is all right. I was just like, well, all right. There is still good. In this crazy COVID-ridden pandemic, everybody's lost their doggone minds world, and we're going to talk about that. We are going to talk about mental immunity and what that means. And maybe that's what happened on January 6th. Maybe they don't have an immunity. They're immune to common sense. There is a whole psychiatric philosophy that might explain some of these anti-mask people and people who are literally attacking other people for choosing not to get a vaccine. All of that we're going to discuss today. But before I get there, I want to paint a picture for you. My 13-year-old son brought this to my attention, and he is an avid basketball fan and watcher, participator. His summer league team won second best out of all of the teams, and I don't know how many there were, but it was a lot. His team, and then my youngest son, they both were, like if it had been a Miss America pageant, they would have been first runner-up. So they lost the final game in each tournament and ended up being awarded second best. So here's what he brought to my attention. So we were talking about the Olympics, NBA players, WNBA players, and he says, "Mom, I was watching this this documentary series on basketball, and they were talking about the monies that are being paid out." Now, I am one of these people who hears that stuff about, men and women and how women are not paid as much, Lilly Ledbetter law, and we hear all of these things, right? But I've had some white men that I have worked for in the past, now not all of them now, but I've had some white men that have paid me very well, have treated me very well, and I never thought that someone else was making more money than me, because I was a black woman. Like they never allowed those things to kind of come into my consciousness. You know what I mean? So I have not been burned. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, so I haven't really been saddled with that. But I know that it is a reality for a lot of people. That's why Obama signed the Lilly Ledbetter law after Lilly Ledbetter actually lost before the Supreme Court. He then took it and made it a law that women must be paid the same as men. But here's the thing with that. You have to know how much he's paid. You have to be able to prove it, substantiate it in court. It gets to be a lot. But here's the thing. That my 13-year-old son, because he certainly wasn't talking to me about Lilly Ledbetter. The NBA is, with all of their champions and their championships, does not have the WNBA, those former players and some active that actually go to the Olympics and compete in basketball. They don't have their record. So they've won for the past 16 years. Well, the NBA wins. I mean, come on. The brightest and the brightest plays in America. But here's the thing. When we look at the salaries to be paid out over the next 3 weeks, the NBA will have amassed in payouts $3 billion. $3 billion, billion with a B like boy, $1 billion. The WNBA, money's paid out, $2 million, signing bonus and salaries. Diana Taurasi made $81,000 last year, and she was the highest paid player of the WNBA. Okay. I know y'all are saying, what does that mean? Okay, well, what that means is the WNBA, because it's women athletes and people, they just don't bring on the same way that the men do, even though these are stellar athletes and many of them have participated in the Olympic Games, representing their country proudly and winning. They still average on $10 million a year in losses, which the NBA proudly picks up because they're such good stewards. I just wanted y'all to know that, because to me, there is a huge injustice going on in sports, and we've seen it in soccer, and we've heard about things that happen in gymnastics. What is happening to our girls in athletics? Why are we not doing a better job to protect them, especially when we're talking about the brightest and the best, those that are at the top of their game? What are we doing to protect them? Those are the things that make you go, This is Corey with the Black Tea Sip. We're going to take a break, and now I want to talk to y'all about Governor Hot Wheels, COVID, masks, and schools, and children. And while we're worried about COVID, there's some people out here not bathing. There's like a whole TMZ article about it. This is Corey. I'll be right back.
Nourished skin is healthy skin. Simply Ardor skincare products provides luxurious nourishment for your body. Indulge in rich scrubs and body butters and top it off with our sensational and unique aromatic lines of sprays and roll-on fragrances. It's simple and lovely. Simply Ardor. Love is real. Just spread it.
Do you want to find a stable job in a growing field? IT jobs such as network systems administrators, cybersecurity, programming, cloud, and computer systems analysts are expected to increase
Play Jane and then I'm
25%
gonna
by
come back.
2022.
Thank you.
Texas Premier Technology Institute offers training for top certifications such as CompTIA, Cisco, and Microsoft in less than 12 weeks. And if you're unemployed or underemployed, you may qualify for free tuition. Contact TPTI at 1-888-490-TPTI or check them out on the web at tpti.us.
For nearly 30 years, we've had the experienced leadership of Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. Now, it's our duty to ensure that we continue toward progress. I am Jane Hope Hamilton. As a wife, a mother, and for a time a single mother, I know firsthand the challenges that our families face, and I know what it takes to get things done for our families and our community. As the state director for President Biden and former chief of staff on Capitol Hill, I fought for our community to have affordable health care, good paying jobs, and quality education. For years, I have also gone toe-to-toe with those who try to push us back and knock us down. When corrupt Republicans pass discriminatory voting laws that violate our rights, I fought back, went to court, and won. And when an out-of-control cop beat me to the ground, I refused to be intimidated. I stood up for myself, and the charges were dropped because I demanded justice. In this climate, as we face so much uncertainty, I am being encouraged to run in Congressional District 30. And as I consider it, I'd like to hear from you. Together, we can move our communities and our families forward.
10. Three, 2.
All right, we're back, and this is Coy. If you're just joining us today, we've been talking about some of the things that have been going on with women and athletes. But athletics are going to be significantly impacted because here in the great state of Texas and in several GOP states as well, we are plagued with a Delta surge. And what does that mean for Texas? Well, I'm, one of those parents that finds themselves struggling with, what do I do about my babies? Because truthfully, I do not want them to contract it, but I think that their social development is also important. But then you say, well, are we really going to worry about social development? Because you don't have social development if you're dead, right? So you're constantly in this mental battle of balance of what to do for yourself, your children, if you have aging parents. What do you do with people who are immune compromised and people who are just struggling to find their way? I find myself often asking the question, would we have been in this situation if the orangutan running the 3-ring circus from the Oval Office had actually not been an orangutan and like a real boy like Pinocchio? Like if he had been a real person, would we be in this spot? I want to say we would not have. Like had he not round-filed the pandemic report that Obama had done and he actually looked at it and paid attention to it, like would we be in this particular spot? I dare say no. I mean, when are we gonna do something about Trump? Like when are we gonna bring him up on charges? Like, okay, well maybe it's wishful thinking. I know it's wishful thinking. Let's talk about Texas and Governor Hot Wheels and why we need to just roll him down some stairs. Governor Hot Wheels, I've never heard of this. I've never heard of a mandate to not do something. Like mandate to not require mask. Okay, I'm gonna allow you to say it 3 times to yourself out loud. Okay, did it make sense when you said it to yourself? Because it's ridiculous. Here we have a mandate in the state of Texas that no public grade school, university, municipalities, like buildings like, the mayor, city council, those buildings that run the city, they cannot require masks, even though scientists are saying you should, wear masks to protect yourself and others. But that's not what we're doing. We are literally doubling down on stupidity, doubling down on being dumb. So I think, when we start to talk about science and what's going on in these people's minds, we just say, oh, they're crazy, right? We just dismiss them. Because here's the experience that I had. My kids' school, they released a statement, and they said, starting tomorrow, all faculty, students, staff will be required to actually wear a mask, right? Boom. I was like, okay, great. Because Dallas did it. So for those of you that are listening outside Texas, outside Dallas, we had Dallas Independent School District. The superintendent held a press conference and said, listen, we are going to require that the students, teachers, staff, faculty on campus, volunteers, whomever, when you get to this campus, you will be required to wear a mask. Realizing and acknowledging in that same breath that the Governor Hot Wheels is freewheeling around here, wanting everybody to raw dog the air. That's what we got going on in Texas. And he said, we're working with the lawyers now to see about paying the fines. However, if I have to pay it out of my own pocket, I'm willing to do that because we're going to keep these kids safe. Now, the day he said that, the ICU beds were 97% full in our pediatric hospitals. And I want to paint a picture of that for those of you who don't necessarily live in Texas and you're saying, okay, well, what does that really mean? Because Texas, North Texas, where we live, is about 10 counties. So we got Dallas, Denton, we got Collin County, we have Tarrant County, we have Erath, Somerville. I'm leaving some out because I'm doing it from the top of my head. We have about 10 or 12 counties. Fannin, Grayson, Hood, Hunt, Johnson, Kaufman, Navarro, Wise. I think I've gotten them all. All of those counties with all of those hospitals that treat pediatric patients are completely full. But we're not wearing masks in schools. Anybody who's a Republican that's voting for Abbott, I hope that you have a loved one or a friend that is willing to call a spade and have you checked in somewhere, because you need to see somebody on a regular basis that has a license and a couch and can write prescriptions. Because this anti-mask thing is just ridiculous. Okay, you don't want the vaccine, you don't feel good about it. It makes sense to me. I do understand that. I understand that people feel some kind of way about the vaccine. Some people have food allergies. I talked about that. Some people have phobias. I talked about that last week. Okay, I understand that. And I think the people who want a vaccine should get them. And the people who have reservations should take huge precautions. I actually expect a commercial in the near future that goes a little something like this. Did you take the AstraZeneca, Moderna, Pfizer, or Johnson & Johnson vaccine in 2021? If so, you may be entitled to compensation. Did you have a loved one that expired shortly after taking the vaccine? You may be entitled to compensation. I mean, I do kind of expect to hear that at some point. I do. I mean, let's not act like the FDA doesn't approve stuff and then snatch it off the counter later after, I don't know, 3 million people have taken it. I mean, let's not act like that does not happen. So when we start saying, oh, these people are crazy. Now, for the people who say that COVID doesn't exist, well then, yes, they are usually the Trumpsters, and they are actually psychotic. Yes, that is absolutely happening. But we should not be so dismissive, because there is a high blood pressure medication, and I never remember the name of it, that literally, so pharmaceutical companies have this thing called the black box. and they say that African Americans did not test well in the studies, but they usually are very dismissive in the language and the phrasing of that because they have such a small pool of African Americans to pull from. And so this particular medication they have allergic reaction and people swell up. I mean, swell up to the point where they're disfigured. I mean, I've seen people who literally look like the Elephant Man. Lips, you know, is huge as my head. I have a little head, but they'd be big lips. So, you know, those things do happen, and it is on the market and readily prescribed to African Americans from their doctor. So I don't want people to just get out here and say, oh, all the people who are concerned about the vaccine are crazy. Well, some of them are. Some of them are now. Come on. Some of them really are, and people were dying in probably South Carolina, but they talked about South Dakota. They were literally dying. That's Trump country, if you didn't know. And they were telling the nurse, I must have cancer or something because COVID is not real, and they were dying of COVID while they were making these ridiculous statements. So yes, there's something wrong with those people. But what is wrong with testing? I think if you don't want a vaccine, then you should avail yourself to regular testing. I also want to say this, for the people who are vaccinated, who are afraid of the people who are not vaccinated, well, do you not think your vaccine worked? Because now, that's a talk show for a different day. But what is going on in your head that you are afraid of a non-vaccinated person and you're vaccinated? Because the truth is that vaccinated people can still contract and can still pass on COVID-19 to a vaccinated person and an unvaccinated person. So the people who ought to be afraid of the unvaccinated people, I'm just gonna put that out there. But then you ought to be at home and not freewheeling all around here like Governor Hot Wheels. You ought to be at home and choosing very carefully where you go if you are unvaccinated. But these people that are running around here thinking it does not exist, well, you know, the devil did that too. Him and Kaiser Sose made people think they didn't exist. So here's a mother, and I want to talk about Greg Abbott specifically in a minute, but I want to tell you my children's school. They said we're gonna do a mask. Remember I said that, and then the very next day. So I think that was going to be Wednesday. They said Tuesday we're gonna wear a mask after Hinojosa, who is the superintendent of Dallas, said, oh no, we're gonna wear a mask and whatever comes with that comes with that. You know, he was kind of like on some little gangster stuff, like, you know, jump Judy. That's what he told Governor Hotwood. Well, that's probably very poor taste to tell him to jump, but you know, Greg Abbott just won't stand for nothing. But however, so then you had Austin ISD that said the same thing, and Tarrant County ISD, Fort Worth ISD, I'm sorry. Fort Worth ISD said the same. Those are very large independent school districts in Texas. So if they all band together, then you'll decrease your legal fees, you know. Well, before I could get home, I think that was Tuesday, Wednesday morning, before I could get back from dropping them off, they said we're going to follow the governor's orders. And that's because the governor set out to attack them. I'm going to tell you what he said. This is quote the Black Tea Sip. Stay with me, and let's talk about Governor Hot Wheels and what he said and why he's got these superintendents quaking in their boots, except for Dallas, Austin, and Fort Worth.
Now available, T.H. Moore's newest novel, titled I Am, follows a young African-American couple who are forced to pick up the pieces of their marriage after the violent loss of their young godson at the hands of a local white policeman. The loss sparks not only their community's anger, but also the rage of a vigilante who initiates a nationwide killing spree targeted at corrupt police officers. New York Times best-selling author Omar Tyree praises T.H. Moore's new novel as an audacious story and read. Dr. Christopher C. Irving, CEO of the Miller Institute for Leadership and Diversity in America, calls it a daring story. I Am by T.H. Moore, now available at Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and at thmoore.com.
Nourished skin is healthy skin. Simply Ardor skincare products provides luxurious nourishment for your body. Indulge in rich scrubs and body butters, and top it off with our sensational and unique aromatic lines of sprays and roll-on fragrances. It's simple and lovely. Simply Ardor. Love is real. Just spread it.
All right, if you just joined us, this is Coy with the Black Tea Sip, and we're talking about Governor Hot Wheels and how he's freewheeling around here, expecting everybody to just raw dog the air. And so he's in a fight now with independent school districts, Dallas, Austin, Fort Worth, and then smaller school districts like where my kids go to school. They're afraid. They want to require masks. They sent out a message saying that they were going to do that like Tuesday evening and Wednesday morning before I could get home from dropping them off. They had already rescinded that and said they were going to follow the governor's order. And this is why. After the school district superintendent, Hinojosa, said that he was going to require masks, and he literally said, well, come with that, I'll pay the fines, or if I pay them out of my pocket, we're going to keep these kids straight. Okay, they tweeted it. Here's the tweet from Hot Wheels and Paxton. A mandamus petition has been filed in the 5th Court of Appeals to strike down Dallas County's mask mandate. All right, the mask mandate from Dallas County is by the judge, Commissioner Clay Jenkins, who is following the lead of Marciella, who is a judge in Dallas County that said all county employees, which would include the county commissioners. The county commissioners are situated here in Texas. We have county commissioners, for those that are listening outside the state. And they are situated much like your city council people would be. Your city council members run the city. Our county commissioners run the county. So Marciella says, no, if you're a county employee, you need to wear a mask indoors. So Clay Jenkins doubles down, and after Clay Jenkins doubles down, then Hinojosa comes out with the Dallas ISDC. It's like a domino. It just keeps falling and falling and falling, and not in Abbott's favor. So when he says that he has filed a mandamus petition to strike down the mask mandate in Dallas County, it says under Executive Order GA 38, no governmental entity can mandate masks. Why are you so against masks? I mean, he thinks he's a superhero. All superheroes wear masks. I just don't understand. It's very confusing to me. Then they go on to say the path forward relies on personal responsibility, not governor mandates. Now, you do remember that the Republican Party is all about, you guessed it, you're so smart, small government. But is this really about small government, or is this about stupidity? I mean, are we talking about protecting children and the teachers that teach them, or are we just talking about, what are we talking about? I mean, what, public health? Now, you had Tanya Parker, you'll remember her from the Botham Jean trial. Tanya Parker, Botham Jean murder trial. I want to be specific because Botham Jean was never on trial. Even though they tried it. You remember she signed it saying we have to put public health over this ridiculousness. It's basically what she said. So here we are in a fight. We got Governor Hot Wheels, regulators mount up. And then you've got Clay Jenkins and the school superintendents, and they're standing on the other side. Here's the thing. This is what kills me about Republicans. When they circle the wagons to protect their own. Now, I'm not sure what's going to happen, because what should have happened is every superintendent in the state of Texas should have joined Dallas, Austin, and Fort Worth. Every private school should have been championing the cause, saying, no, we're going to wear masks. It should have been a double down on common sense. But instead, we got a few school districts out here willy-nilly by themselves. We've got the other school districts that want to but are too afraid. And I can understand the fear. Being sued by the state means they have, even untapped resources, right? They have unlimited resources, and they have very limited resources, unless all of them band together, which I don't see why they wouldn't do that. So here's a statement from Hot Wheels and them. Under Executive Order GA 38, no governmental entity can require mandate the wearing of masks. It can require or mandate the wearing of masks. Okay, I was about to say he can't talk either. Said Governor Abbott, the path forward relies on personal responsibility, not government mandates. The state of Texas will continue to vigorously fight the temporary restraining order to protect the rights and freedoms of all Texans. Rights and freedoms? Well, where does health fall into that? Don't you have a right to be healthy? No, just have a right to kill yourself and others. Like, what right? What? He just, I don't know, because I'm at the point now where I want to tell him why he's sitting up here talking about being right. Well, 3 rights just make a left. Then he goes on to say this isn't the first time that we've had to deal with activist characters. So that, the county judge, Commissioner Clay Jenkins, is an activist. Okay. And then it goes on to say it's deja vu all over again. This is what Paxton says. Attention-grabbing judges and mayors have defiled executive orders before, when the pandemic first started and the courts ruled on our side. The law. I'm confident the outcomes to any suits will side with liberty and individual choice, not mandates and government outreach. What? People are dying. People are dying. And so you don't want to require masks, Hot Wheels, and Paxton because you want to protect rights and freedoms. So really what they're saying is you have a right to die. Not just the people who have a right to kill themselves, you actually have a right to die. You can just go on and get up out of here as far as they're concerned. Well, that brings me to a mother in Franklin, Tennessee. Franklin, Tennessee is a very wealthy area in Tennessee. She writes Wednesday, August 11th at 7:30 p.m. to the school board members and someone named Brent Eller and Dee Baxter. I don't know who they are. And it says parent opt-out policy. You're going to love this. Good evening. I am writing to request the parent opt-out form to opt out of school dress code. As the parent of a daughter at East Hamilton, I find the school's dress code policy to be misogynistic and detrimental to the self-esteem of young women. Rather than shaming young women into covering their shoulders and other parts of their body, I believe we should empower female students to have agency over their own bodies and to wear clothing that is comfortable for them and contributes to their ability to enhance their learning experience. In light of the opt-out option related to the recently announced mask mandate, I can only assume that parents are now in a position to pick and choose the school policies to which their child should be subject. As someone who holds a strong commitment to my feminist ideals and my desire to raise my daughter to be a strong and empowered woman able to make choices for herself, I find that the school's dress code policy does not align with my belief system. I therefore intend to opt out of this policy and send my daughter to school in spaghetti straps, leggings, cutoffs, and anything else she feels comfortable wearing to school. Please make a note that she is not, under any circumstances, to be dress coded, as I have clearly communicated my decision to opt out of this policy. Thank you. This is Stella. I think I might do it. Like, you know, they said that they couldn't wear certain belts. They had to have a regular butt buckle. Well, what does regular? I mean, who's defining regular? Isn't that very subjective? That's how I feel about my son. Since one day they said they were gonna wear masks, and the very next day, that morning, it wasn't even 12 hours. Well, maybe it was 12 hours. Maybe it was 12 hours later. They said no, no. They crawfished on them. You know, like if we had been playing spades, they would have reneged. And you know what happens when you renege playing spades. I mean, like, you can get beat up. I felt like somebody should do some beating up, but I understood why they did that, because the truth is they're afraid. But that brings me to a very special point. A lot of what's going on here is fear. People are afraid. You have some people that are afraid to take the vaccine. You have some people that are afraid not to. You have some people that are afraid to wear a mask. Some people are afraid not to. The people who are afraid to wear a mask, they are feeling like they're succumbing. Or is it that they don't have mental immunity? We got to play some bills in a minute. This is Coy with the Right to See Sip. I'll be right back. Stay with me.
Now available, T.H. Moore's new loss of their young godson at the hands of a local white policeman. The loss sparks not only their community's anger, but also the rage of a vigilante who initiates a nationwide killing spree targeted at corrupt police officers. New York Times best-selling author Omar Tyree praises T.H. Moore's new novel as an audacious story and read. Dr. Christopher C. Irving, CEO of the Miller Institute for Leadership and Diversity in America, calls it a daring story. I Am by T.H. Moore, now available at Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and at thmoore.com.
All right. And we're back. This is Coy with your Black Tea Sip. If you're just joining us, we are talking about COVID, the state of Texas, and the foolishness that's going on in the GOP. We are we are under the direction and the stupidity of Greg Abbott and his cohorts, and they do not want people to be able to require masks, even in our schools, when our beds, as of today, there are no pediatric beds in any of the counties, if you were listening earlier, that I counted. So they're gone. There are no pediatric beds. Now you have children that are presenting with not just COVID, but RSV, which they hardly ever have in the summertime. So what does that mean for us? Well, child, you better be careful. Remember that, I don't remember what movie that was from. It said, be afraid, be very afraid. Well, you better be afraid. Because, well, Paxton, like Trump, is out here trying to kill us. We are literally talking to someone and we're saying, hey, listen, if you walk over there, you will fall off a cliff. It's a high probability that you're not going to notice it and you're just going to fall off that cliff. And guess what happened? He keeps telling people, don't worry about that cliff. If you fall off the cliff, a cloud will catch you. I mean, it's a notion of just blatant stupidity. And we're at the point now where we have to make really very serious choices for our children. So I have a friend of mine that talked to a friend of hers who said that she is not leaving her house. She is afraid. At this point, the woman is deathly afraid. And she's so afraid that she's gotten some school in Austin, even though she lives in Dallas, and that's how her children are attending school, because she is afraid that they're going to contract this Delta variant and then there won't be any beds and her child will die. You know, like that's the kind of, that's where they have us now. Can you imagine the stress that mothers and fathers, parents all over the nation are faced with these GOP states not allowing just the schools to say, hey, everybody wear a mask? Is that not psychological trauma? Can't we like band together and storm? Is he still in Mar-a-Lago? Like, I don't even know where Trump is. I just know that every time I see him, he's a little bigger. Like, maybe he's gonna eat himself to death. Oh, never mind, I've digressed. I started daydreaming. So there's an article that came out about vaccinated people shared their COVID breakthrough stories. Y'all are like, vaccinated people? Yes, vaccinated people are sharing their COVID. So they are contracting COVID. So Jacob Hill, 42, in Gonzales, Louisiana, said he was meeting with one of the only other people who is vaccinated in his workplace, his boss. He got the Johnson & Johnson, and the boss got the Johnson & Johnson, and then Jacob Hill got the Pfizer vaccine. They were in his office Tuesday and Wednesday, less than 6 feet apart, and no mask, because they're vaccinated, right? He calls him Thursday, the boss calls Jacob Hill, on Thursday morning and says he's running a fever. Of course, Jacob starts to panic. He's like, oh my God, you know, and then he says he'll watch his symptoms. Then his boss called him and said, I took the test and I'm positive. You're gonna have to isolate. The next day is when his headache started. Daniel Merchant, vaccinated. 25, Brooklyn, New York, and also Portland, Oregon. So what does that mean? He's by city, or is that considered Black coastal? New York, Brooklyn? I don't know about that. I got vaccinated on April 7th at a public vaccination drive in Co-op City, Bronx, right when the vaccine was made available to 18 and older people. I got the J&J vaccine. Now, there was a doctor, I don't want to say it's Fauci because that I'm unsure, did say that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is holding up against the variant better than Pfizer and Moderna. Well, let's see what Daniel Merchant says. He says he knew that he'd been exposed because 3 to 4 days before he started showing symptoms. And he was at a funeral, and then right after he started showing symptoms, he found out that his grandfather's wife was there and she had tested positive. She's a breakthrough case as well. Really unfortunate timing, quote, because I went to another funeral the day before I found out I was exposed, so I had to text a ton of people that they'd been exposed to. Only one other person got it, also a breakthrough case, which is a huge relief, but still a nightmare. So, Chantal Smith, 38, Brooklyn. Something going on in Brooklyn. She got vaccinated in April. See a trend? And actually got the Johnson & Johnson. Oh, J&J, they just can't cut your break. Her boyfriend was vaccinated in April as well. He got the Moderna. In mid-July, they went to the U.S. Virgin Islands and the Caribbean. You had to show that you had a negative test before you flew. And the Virgin Islands has a mask mandate. When they flew back, there was an incident on the plane where someone wasn't wearing a mask correctly and they were acting very belligerent. They actually got kicked off the plane and the police had to come on. It was just a big thing and a pain. 2 days later, her boyfriend started complaining that he felt like he had a summer cold. So what I deduce from that is people that took the vaccine in March and April, early when it first came off, where your resistance is probably wearing off. Because first they said, remember when they said you were going to have it like 3 to 4 months, and then they came out and said 6 months, and they said you would have immunity for 8 months. Well, I think that's where we are. We're at the cutoff where it must be 6 months. Because, March, April, May, June, July. Oh, okay, 4 months, August 5. So my math was wrong. So people are losing their resistance basically within 90 to 120 days of being vaccinated. And I was exposed to someone who was fully vaccinated and contracted it. I didn't. My test was negative. But I was deeply concerned because I have small children. I have my parents. And because we have breakthrough cases. So then, what are we supposed to do? What would be the responsible thing to do? Well, for one, put your mask on and sit down somewhere and stop acting like there's no pandemic. Like Governor Hot Wheels and others want you to believe that the pandemic is over. I am here to tell you, dear heart, it is not over. It is surging, especially if you're in the state of Texas, Dallas County. It is surging. It's not going away. It's here. It's it's here, and not only is it here, it's here to stay. There's a TikTok video where the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is literally saying no. I'm cool on that Delta, whereas Pfizer and Moderna said, oh no, we have to go full throttle. And he's like, what are we, the Avengers, vaccines assemble? The efficacy and the way that people conduct themselves. So the efficacy of the vaccine does not mirror the people's ability to go to concerts and attend parties and act and not wear your mask and act like everything is fine because you're vaccinated. Because again, we see breakthrough cases. And I think that part of being vaccinated, people have literally started to just, act like it's all gravy. And it's not. And so this idea that you don't need a mask indoors is beyond my understanding. I just don't understand. And I really wish people weren't so dumb. But then while we're talking about hand washing and what you should do, here's a whole thing about people who don't even take baths. I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, the whole thing is just ridiculous. You remember when Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, his wife, said they didn't bathe? Child, there's some more of these people out here. So I'm saying now we got all these things that are going on. They talk about hand washing and cleanliness. If you don't wash your body, do you wash your hands? Ooh, what about when they go to the bathroom? So here's what happened. happened with Kutcher and Kunis. Ashton Kutcher says, I wasn't that parent that bathed my newborn ever. Oh, I'm sorry, Mila Kunis said this, his wife, Ashton Kutcher's wife. I wasn't that parent that bathed my newborns ever. You didn't bathe your newborn. Well, maybe that's why we can't get rid of the COVID. If you can see dirt on them, says Ashton Kutcher, clean them. Otherwise, there's no point. They just admitted this readily. I mean, okay, so then you have The Rock, who says, I'm the opposite of not washing themselves, celebrity. Before breaking down this routine shower, he showers cold when he rolls out of bed to get his day started. A cold shower? Okay. I can't function with a cold shower. I have to go back to bed and lay down and warm up. Then he showers warm after his workout and before work. After his workout and before work. Then he comes back. Well, he's not going to have no skin. Then he showers hot after he gets home from work, washes his face and exfoliates. Then he sings off key twice a day, and then he goes to work for 12 hours. I shower 3 times. Easy to understand, he added. Okay, well, his skin probably dry because that's a lot of bathing. But I mean, maybe that's the cold shower. Then you have Lisa Bonet's husband, who says, I'm not starting any new trends. I shower, trust me. Jason Momoa said. And he told Access Hollywood, I'm Aquaman. I'm in the effing water. Don't worry about it. I'm Hawaiian. We got salt on us. We good. I'm trying to understand why people are out here we got a whole Delta variant and people talking about they're not going to take a bath. And it's not just them. It's the little goofy guy, Kristen Bell, and her husband, what's his name, Dax. They both said they do a smell test on their children's feet. So they smell their children's feet, and if the children's feet smell bad, then they decide they're going to give them a bath. We got a whole pandemic going on. Everybody talking about wash your hands and wear masks and be careful and blah, blah, blah. And these people won't even wash their behinds. I don't know what to do with the world. Like, the whole world has gone crazy. And so that brings me to mental immunity. So there's this whole process about mental immunity. And it talks about a better way to think. So Andy Norman wrote a book called Mental Immunity and a Better Way to Think. Mental immunity, just so you know. Mental immunity. So immunity, to have the physical resistance to fight off what we normally think of as disease or ailments of some kind. So that's your immunity. But they're talking about mental immunity, and do you have the ability to do that with your mind? That might explain these anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers. I'm just saying. Mental immunity is the ability to tolerate negative thoughts without having an immediate emotional reaction. Mental immunity is not being able to a lack of mental immunity is not being able to resist or deny negative thoughts. It is being able to observe them without acting on them or automatically believing what they represent. You remember a long time ago when we were talking about the fact that they said that Hillary Clinton was in a child trafficking sex ring, and it was operating out of a pizzeria, and then the man went in there in the pizzeria looking for the basement that didn't exist in the pizzeria with like a AK-47, terrorized those people to death. Well, he would lack what? Mental immunity. This is a whole phenomenon where psychiatrists are literally trying to explain why people have gone, batshit crazy. They are trying to explain, it's called cognitive immunology. What exactly does that mean? Cognitive immunology. Wait one more time. Cognitive immunology is the science of mental immunity, a mind's resistance to bad ideas, misinformation, and divisive ideologies. I have a very dear friend whose stepmother is a it's a black woman, full-on QAnon, believes everything, believes that they boiling babies and eating their skin. Believes it all. So we have to have a reason for why these people have why is their cheese sliding off the cracker? Mental immune systems filter ideas and conduct operations to spot and remove bad ideas, but they can quickly deteriorate. just like your own immune system. Cognitive immunologists devise interventions to boost mental immune performance, which may help protect against damaging viral ideas. So now, last week we were talking about Facebook and how it stopped the NY University researchers from being able to see if Facebook is doing what they said they were going to do and actually stop all of the mis and disinformation, which causes so much divisiveness in this country, because we have since learned that it was a full-on act, a concerted effort by Russia to ensure that Trump got in office. And what they realize is that this country is so racist and prejudiced that all you need is kind of like, you know, for those of you who still believe in Satan, it's kind of like when old folks used to say, all the devil needs is a toe hole. All he needed to do was just wedge the door open just a bit, and wedge the door open in a way where they could just slide this information in, because they knew that Americans were stupid enough to believe it. The dumbing down of America has happened over several years. The education secretary that worked under Reagan talked about how there were plans to not teach children the test. The test is basically memorization and regurgitation. You said, what test you talk about? So glad you asked. The statewide test that basically decides whether or not a child has learned anything. And so they have these metrics, right? And these metrics determine, you know, what the child is supposed to be able to answer and in what way. Well, we see this play out in schools all over, whether it's, you know, whether it's actually the test or not, because you'll have a child that can do the work, gets the answer. Then the teacher says, well, I need to see your work. Well, some kids who are really, really good in math, they don't show the work. Like, their mind just works in a different way. And it becomes very frustrating and traumatic for them to not be able to give the answer, or sometimes they're working it out. My youngest son's like that. He'll work it out, and then where you don't see where he actually got the answer, he gets it right. And he was very irritated with his teacher, and he said, you know, he was 10. And when she said she needed to see his work, he said, is the answer right? And she said, yes, the answer's right. And then he basically said, well, you said you were a math major in college. You don't know the answer? This is the right answer. She said she needed to see his work, because that's not how his mind works. His mind doesn't work like that. His mind looks at a problem and solves it. You know, I mean, kind of little protege thing going on there. So I'm saying that to say, when we start to dumb down, and I am saying that, I know some teachers, my teacher friends are going to get mad at me, the ones who are honest won't, but the ones who want to believe education is where it needs to be, they will get mad. When we start to do that, then we basically start to weaken our ability to be immune to certain things. This is Quote with Black T Sip. I got to pay some bills. I'll be right back. 12 o'clock hour. We are going to dissect mental or cognitive immunity. Then we're going to do the dildo of the day and the Black Excellence Award. This is Coy with the Black Tea Sip.
Nourished skin is healthy skin. Simply Ardor skincare products provides luxurious nourishment for your body. Indulge
Do you
in
play
rich
the
scrubs
station
and body butters, and
commercials?
top it
Okay.
with our
Yes.
sensational
Just wanted
and
to make
unique
sure.
aromatic
Thank you.
lines,
Appreciate you
sprays,
asking.
and roll-on fragrances. It's simple and lovely.
I know
Simply
some people
Ardor.
don't
Love is
like
real.
to,
Just
and
spread it.
I'm fine with it.
Fishbowl Radio Network wants to congratulate 52 hosted by Tria, this month's show of the month on Fishbowl Radio Network. Log on every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 1
still
p.m.
play two of
Central
your
Standard
commercials?
Time and
Yeah.
start streaming 52 hosted by Tria on Fishbowl Radio Network, the most listened to internet radio network of its kind.
Let's get straight to the point. A fresh new school year requires fresh new supplies. This month, Fishbowl Radio Network will be combining our networking event with our community campaign by collecting pencils for Roosevelt High School in Dallas. The top 8 shows that bring in the most new, unused pencils will get treated to lunch or dinner to network and have some fun. Also, you will get 1 Sharky point per pencil and the undeniable feeling of helping kids get sharp. We will be accepting pencils up until 7 p.m. on Saturday, August 28th. Simple, yet impactful. Please make sure you label your pencils so we can keep track and thank you you so much. Jump in, Fishbowl family.
Hi, this is Diane Marion Eunice, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. For the past 9 years, I have worked with over 300 couples in the areas of sexual health, communication, and conflict resolution. If you are interested in rebuilding connection and intimacy with your partner, please contact me today. I can be reached at 682-201-8175, or you can email me at diane@letstalkrelationships.org, or visit my website at www.letstalkrelationships.org. And remember, you can't heal if you refuse to deal.
Fishbowl Radio Network, MoreAre.us. Jump in. Do you want to find a stable job in a growing field? IT jobs such as network systems administrators, cybersecurity, programming, cloud, and computer systems analysts are expected to increase 25% by 2022. Texas Premier Technology Institute offers training for top certifications such as CompTIA, Cisco, and Microsoft in less than 12 weeks. And if you're unemployed or underemployed, you may qualify for free tuition. Contact TPTI at 1-888-490-TPTI or check them out on the web at tpti.us.
All right, this is Cora with the Black Tea Sip, and we're back. If you're just joining us, we've been talking about what's going on in the world with COVID, and we've been talking about the fact that we've got some GOP governors that are out here just, they trying to take us out like Trump did. Trump almost killed us. It's hard. I struggle to believe that anybody is that stupid. But, I did call him an orangutan running a 3-ring circus from the Oval Office, so perhaps I need to own it. But when we start to talk about what's going on in the hearts and minds of men, and to discuss whether or not we can actually understand why people do what they do, we were talking about before the break, we were talking about cognitive immunology and what that means. And it means that whether or not you have the mental capacity to be immune from foolishness. That's the breakdown of it. So that's like, how they have like taxes for dummies. So this is mental or cognitive immunity for people who don't know what it means, because I'm certainly not going to call you a dummy. So there has been an entire psychiatric movement to try to explain all this ridiculous behavior. And so they're saying it's the science of mental health or mental immunity. And so we start to unpack this in a way where we say, well, what are people doing that they're not immune? And I said, I think it's the dumbing down of education in America. And I say that because, we don't really teach thought processes anymore. We don't teach children to think. We teach them to take some information, store it, and then be able to regurgitate it later. So here's a prime example of what I'm talking about. When you get ready to call your cell phone company, and you have an issue that's a little bit different. I'm not gonna say it's only your issue, because that's probably impossible. But it's not something that person has heard of, or they haven't experienced that customer yet. So they don't really know what to do. And so instead of them listening to what you're saying, they keep giving you answers that you didn't ask for. But more importantly, they're giving you answers that do not match or mirror the question. So you can't do anything with it. So then you find yourself getting annoyed and irritated, and you saying things like, that's not what I asked you. Because, well, I know that's how I end up. And I'm like, that's not typically that's not really what I asked you. Because what's happening is they're not listening in a way to be able to deduce the situation and then solve the problem. So then they typically put you on hold, and they got to go find a supervisor. And the supervisor graduated during the big testing thing too, because it started here in 1989 in Texas. So you got all these people that have graduated. Some of them graduated from college, and they can't think. They can't process information, filter out the bad, pull the good, or just let it go altogether. And some people need to be validated so badly that they need to believe that there is a sex trafficking ring run by Hillary Clinton in a pizzeria. Doesn't Hillary Clinton have enough money to get a whole building? And I guess the pizzeria was supposed to be the front. But there were no kids in there the day the man ran up in there. I think it was like 2 kids. Well, anyway, and let me not try to make sense out of things that are senseless. And so there we are. We are literally trying to battle stupidity. I mean, that's basically what we're talking about. We're trying to battle stupidity. And we're trying to find a reason for it. So this is what they're telling you. They're telling you, Andy Norman and his cohorts, they are saying, minds conduct operations to spot and remove bad ideas. Bad means false, misleading, irresponsible, harmless, or overly problematic. That's what we're considering bad. And so then they ask questions, for example, and sometimes discount the ideas that end up looking too shaky. Like they put a secret chip in you when you get a vaccine. People believe that. The infrastructure that supports these operations is the mind's immune system. These systems are distributed in 2 senses. First, many parts of the brain participate in assessment of ideas, the frontal and the temporal lobe. So it is the hippocampus. Thank you. Duke is in here today. Hippocampus. Let me put some glasses on, Duke. That'll help us out. There we go. Oh, look at that. Night and day, I can actually see now. And it is the amygdala. Gondola. We don't know. Duke didn't help me on that.
Amygdala, I think.
We don't know. We're moving on. Second, the relatively new concept of mental immune function cuts across more traditional categories like critical thinking, curiosity, mindset, and fair-mindedness. Mindset and fair-mindedness. Critical thinking, being able to deduce a problem, not just hear it and regurgitate a scripted answer. So now the question becomes, when I'm telling you all this, you're saying, well, are mental immune systems real, or is that just a term that someone's used? Well, if you mean a discrete chunk of matter devoted solely to sifting through ideas and removing the bad ones, then probably not. The standard, though, is the body's immune system wouldn't count as real either. The body's immune system is distributed or decentralized. And so I've said it all the times, your immune system comes from your gut. You have a strong core, a healthy gut, you're probably not sick very often. So as long as we define mental immune system by its function, its job to filter ideas, we can be confident that the mental immune system really do exist, just like your own immune system when they tell you to take Emergent C to boost it, or just drink vitamin C to get over that cold. They are expecting your immune system to kick into gear and to push out whatever is ailing you. In the very same way, we expect the mind to do that, except for the fact that we are seeing that that is not the case with the mind. So if we accept the definition of mental immune system and it follows directly that it's real, then we understand that you can gain a conceptual lens that brings or our mixed up post-truth world into astonishing, clear focus. Direct quote. Do this and you'll begin to see solutions that have long escaped our notice. So that's in, parts of that are in Psychology Today for those of you that are curious. So then let's talk about mental immunity and why it appears that some people don't have it. So here we go. People who are indecisive cannot make a decision. Do they lack mental immunity, or do they have too much mental immunity, and so they're constantly battling on 2 sides of their brain, for instance, trying to figure out what to do? I'm not sure that when you're indecisive, does that mean that you can't filter out bad ideas? What it means is that you're afraid to make a mistake. It means that you have a fear that if you are to do this one thing, then you will be punished by this other thing. And so you have a fear. So that's indecisiveness. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who literally stormed the White House on January 6th and were attempting to hang Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, leaders of the Democratic Party. Those people lack mental immunity. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is the wackadoo, the blonde, who is a big Trump supporter, who's out here spewing all this craziness, and Matt Gaetz, they're the ones that we showed a few weeks ago. They went to the federal prison and they were trying to check on the January 6ers, and they just showed up. That's mental immunity. They lack mental immunity. So then now we start to unpack why people are actually going crazy, to the point where you start to ask yourself, well now something else is going on. Like you hear people say, well, I mean, it can't be, the vaccine is totally unsafe and they're putting chips in people, because they wouldn't say that if it weren't true. Well, those are the people we're talking about. So now there's a whole psychiatric idealism behind the fact that people have gone literally apeshit crazy. And that's where we are now. That people are now, there's a diagnosis for it. They don't have mental immunity. And so now what does that mean that we have to do? Well, we have to be a lot more careful in our interactions with people. I've seen people get completely into arguments. Families fall out. They can't talk anymore. And all of those things happen because there's somebody that doesn't agree. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about disagreeing. You don't have to become completely enemies because you disagree. But it is very difficult to talk to someone who's completely off their rocker and then say to them, no, it's fine. You're fine. I can still conduct business with you and talk to you. It's just that I think you're batshit crazy. That's very difficult to do. But I think what Trump has done very successfully is divide us. Divide us as a country, divide families. The division that has come in is very disconcerting to me. Like I'm seriously concerned about the fact that I know people who are not talking to their own family members anymore because they're Trump supporters, because they have gone on to a QAnon way of thinking. And I don't think QAnon and the GOP are one and the same. Like I actually think that this QAnon thing is borders on the Tea Partiers. Remember how wackadoo they were? Well, that's where we are now, but nothing's being done. And so if you can literally say this behavior is because of an imbalance or a lack of mental immunity, then shouldn't there be steps next? And that is what I did not find. They say, well, you can, these are things that you can do and you can work on your mental state, but don't you have to first acknowledge the problem? So how do we get there? So like we have Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Or Gamblers Anonymous, right? So we have these things, but so they tell you, okay, first you have to acknowledge there's a problem, and then there's a place where you go, and then, they have some steps, and they work through those steps with you, and then you get over your problem. But you're always recovering, right? So do you have a situation where someone says, oh, I lack mental immunity, let me get myself to somebody? So there's a gap and a deficiency, even though now we're saying that this is a problem. But the problem is intentional. The problem is the fact that they have specifically set out to create the inability for people to think through things critically, so that they don't storm the Capitol trying to hang senators. And I think that there is this movement to try to figure out why people think this way, because what we saw on January 6th was horrible. Except for the fact that other countries said, yes, that was awful, but guess what? America is still standing where we've seen other governments completely collapse. Well, yeah, that happens. I mean, just like China is talking to the USA now, and they're saying, okay, well, you want to talk to us about human rights? Well, honestly, you want to talk to us about human rights, but you got a whole repeat in syndication of George Floyd. So, can we really make these statements? Can we, as America, make these statements and actually say that we're doing things right or better as we police the world? I mean, we got the Middle East now, where we're pulling out. We've been there for 20 years, and today a former CIA I guess he would be the director of the CIA. He said, we cannot win. It is an unwinnable war, and we've been there for 20 years, and we need to leave. And what has happened is now the Taliban is going to assume these places in Afghanistan and other places in the Middle East. And does that mean that another president is going to come in later and send our troops back over there? These are all the questions that go on in my mind, because we like to deal with incidents like they're isolated, but they're not. They're not, because when the World Trade Center collapsed and we lost senseless lives, there was a whole congressional hearing to really talk about who was actually responsible. But it came out later that the Bin Laden family that was living in America, when they said you could not use any airspace for travel, they were getting them out. I mean, this is not a coism, this is what happened. So when we start to unpack this country and we start to point fingers, and right now we're falling out over masks and vaccines and whose governor is right and whose mayor is wrong, what we're really dealing with is the fact that we are a nation of people who do not possess the immune system for our minds. So when Mark Zuckerberg doesn't do a good job of filtering out the mis and the disinformation, then these people fall prey to it, and that affects us, me and you and our children, our lives, our families, our jobs. That's what it all boils down to. I'm going to do a dildo of the day when we come back, and I'm going to do Black Excellence Award. And when we talk about Walmart and Target trying to give people some money. This is Corey with the Black Tea Sip.
For nearly 30 years, we've had the experienced leadership of Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. Now, it's our duty to ensure that we continue toward progress. I am Jane Hope Hamilton. As a wife, a mother, and for a time a single mother, I know firsthand the challenges that our families face, and I know what it takes to get things done for our families and our community. As the state director for President Biden and former chief of staff on Capitol Hill, I fought for our community to have affordable health care, good paying jobs, and quality education. For years, I have also gone toe-to-toe with those who try to push us back and knock us down. When corrupt Republicans pass discriminatory voting laws that violate our rights, I fought back, went to court, and won. And when an out-of-control cop beat me to the ground, I refused to be intimidated. I stood up for myself, and the charges were dropped because I demanded justice. In this climate, as we face so much uncertainty, I am being encouraged to run in Congressional District 30. And as I consider it, I'd like to hear from you. Together, we can move our communities and our families forward.
10 seconds. 3, 2.
All right, we're back. This is Corey with the Black Tea Sip. So I wanted to talk about mental immunity, and I wanted to talk about how we as a nation seem to have a divided line of people who don't possess mental immunity, and it's the ability to filter out bad information or to act on bad, or not to be able to stop yourself impulsively from acting on bad information. So I want y'all to keep a couple of things in mind. I want to give the Black Excellence Award to, because I want to talk about the ability to make good decisions, to the City Council in New Orleans, Louisiana. The City Council just decriminalized weed and discussed it. I'm not giving it to any particular black person on the City Council. I'm actually giving it to the citizens of New Orleans who are going to benefit. So they decriminalized weed, and what that means for black folks is you've got about 10,000 people with either pending charges or they've already been convicted and they're going to be pardoned. 10,000 brothers and sisters, black and brown and white, because you know the weed is not for any particular color. So they are going to be able to reassume their lives. You know what happens when you have a drug conviction? Now, you know, whether you went to Angola, which is a horrible place, which they should close down. I don't understand why the Department of Justice hasn't closed it down. They have no air conditioning. I mean, everybody wear pink suits, and the food is horrible, and it's like modern day slavery. and it's a prison, state prison in Louisiana. So whether you actually got that kind of conviction and you end up in the state penitentiary, or if you just got a fine or what they call a citation, but you have to keep paying on it. And it really does play a part in whether or not people can have a true quality of life. So now if you eradicate that, people can start to get homes. The federal government won't allow people to live in Section 8 housing when you have, when that person has a drug conviction. So you can have a girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, where the husband cannot live with his family, girlfriend or wife, children because of a drug conviction. That goes away. So now we start to heal and mend families. So the Black Excellence Award is literally given to the people of New Orleans who are going to be able to benefit from this. The dildo of the day. So look, there are two people who we don't know the names of, right? And I saw this on TikTok. So this guy is behind them in a park, these two people, and he's listening to their conversation. And one of the guys is talking about not inviting this lady named Marissa to the party that they're having. And since she's going out of town, they decide they're going to have the party while she's gone. And with that being said, Marissa has no idea that this planning is happening. She thinks these people are her friends. Well, Drew is listening to the whole thing, and then he records it. So he records the conversation, and then he records on TikTok and asks them to help him find Marissa, because he wants them to know that she is actually she's actually disinvited. Like she should be invited, but they're not going to invite her, right? So they find Marissa in one day. Marissa's crying, she's heartbroken, she's very, very sad. Well, in this, Marissa makes lemonade out of lemons. Marissa then decides, so many people are saying, I'll be your friend and you don't have to put up with that, as people often do. And so Marissa takes them up on it, and they have this meeting at Central Park. She expects to meet maybe 20 or 30 people at the very most, well, 200 people. So it's called No More Lonely Friend. Now, I was astonished, I'm going to tell you the truth, I was astonished that this many lonely people are walking around looking for friendship, looking for love in all the wrong places. And so now they are all together. And she's done it in Boston and another city. And so now it's No More Lonely Friends. And what these two people, unbeknownst to them, have actually done is created a monster in Marissa, because now she's like a celebrity and people want to know her. All of that thanks to Drew on TikTok. So I'm not going to give the Dildo of the Day award to Marissa's two friends, who are of course nameless. They didn't tell us their names, because they are runners up. Second best. The Dildo of the Day goes to a German nurse who actually gave 8,600 people saline instead of the vaccine. She is the Dildo of the Day. They have arrested her in Germany, and she is awaiting trial. Prosecution should be swift, because you have 8,600 people that went around other people and thought that they were vaccinated and safe. So they've called those people in, and they need to take one other shot. But many of them, I'm sure, had what they thought were breakthrough infections, when in fact they were not fully vaccinated. All right, this is Koi. We're going to get out of here today. So we'll see you again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Love, peace, and hair grease. And I'm out.
You melanated beauties, this is Koi with your black tea sip every Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
I don't know, I don't have sniffles or aches or anything, but I never have a headache. That's very concerning to me.
You, me, and everything in between. Join me on Fridays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. where we sip power to
I believe in taking a test, so I'll let y'all know, but my head is killing me.
And to you, Koi with your black tea sip, Dallas Girls and Girls.